So Blancpain released their newest size to the 50 Fathoms family in 38mm. For those who have been wanting a smaller 50 Fathoms, this is for you. Or is it? Because everyone's question is this watch worth it? And at a starting price of $18,200 on steel, I think a lot of people have that same question too. Well, after several days on the wrist, I have some insights that you will find useful. Let me give you my first impressions, what I like and dislike, my final opinions with things you should consider when buying this watch. And if you're new here, my name is Derek. My store Carrot & Co is an authorized dealer for Blancpain, so keep in mind that I'm gonna do my best to give you truthful opinions while being respectful to what collectors are saying and to Blancpain itself. And like mentioned, if you're looking for a Blancpain watch, you can contact my store. Okay, first impressions. When I first tried this watch on, I was like, wait, this actually wears smaller than what I was expecting for a 38mm. To the point that I was like, hey, I told my sister, hey, try this on. And it looked good on her wrist, despite her wrist being even smaller than mine, which made me question, wait, is this 38mm watch too small for my liking? But if you know me, I love mid-sized watches such as the JLC Reverso, Cartier Santos Medium, or even my 38mm Seiko SJE093, which is also a dive watch. Now, part of the reason the initial size shocked me is because the dial itself is smaller, which makes sense because the 50 Fathom Sapphire Crystal bezel is wider and takes more visual space on the wrist than compared to other 38mm dive watches. And you might be thinking, well, why didn't Blancpain just make a 40mm? I'm gonna talk about that towards the end of this video. Now, this watch measures 38mm with a 12mm of thickness and a lug-to-lug of 44mm. Now, whether it's on the bracelet or the Tropic rubber strap, it wears well either way, very compact on the wrist. Now, Blancpain released several variations of the 50 Fathom 38, but today's video, I got hands-on with the steel version, which is a black dial, as well as the red gold with mother of pearl dial, which actually has a no date window, which I really like. Now, on the steel version, the case is entirely high polished on every surface, so if you wanted something a little bit more tool-like, that would be the blue dial in titanium, just like the 42mm version. Alright, here's some things that I really like. 38mm size is great. I thought it was small at first, but I got used to it immediately. Here's a side-by-side with the 42mm so you can understand, and while I can kind of get away with the 42, I much prefer the 38. Next, the lume is amazing. I can completely read everything on the watch, aside from the date, of course, and I feel so freaking cool when I get to show off the lume. Even the seconds hand is lumed. It's so bright, it lasts long, and it honestly makes me feel like a kid again when I'm wearing this watch. And I'm happy to say that the bezel action is great. It's very tight, 120 click, but the space between each click makes it feel like a 60 click bezel. It feels premium and there's no doubt about it, which makes me happy because I find that the bezel action on a luxury dive watch can really make or break the watch. It's like when you're testing out cars and you slam the door closed to make sure it has enough of that oomph noise. You want to make sure you paid for in the bezel or the car door. Now, normally I would find the black dial version very plain, but I will say I love the symmetry on the dial. It is so aesthetically pleasing. While staring at the watch, I noticed that the 12, 3, 6, 9 are all the same length as the shark tooth indices, which is so nice, feels great. Everything is balanced, even the 4:30 date window and the two lines of text on top and bottom. I also love how the font on the dial matches perfectly the font on the bezel. You know, it's the little things. Another great thing is the movement. It's a Blancpain movement, no surprise there. 100-hour power reserve, which is amazing for a watch with only 12mm of thickness and 300 meters of water resistance. You also get to appreciate the finishing through the case back. It looks amazing. I love staring at it. You can see the stunning perlage, satin finish, and high polished beveling on the edges. And of course, it runs extremely accurate, barely a few seconds per day. And you also get a beautiful gold rotor on top. Now, since it is a Blancpain 50 Fathoms, you know that there's going to be a lot of 50 Fathoms branding all over the watch. But the one part of the watch that I really like with it is actually on the buckle of the strap. It's so elegant with this script font. And I gotta say, I love this black Tropic strap that it comes with. It's actually so comfortable and lightweight. I've owned several other Tropic straps from other companies, and without a doubt, this is one of the absolute best Tropic straps I've ever tried. It starts at 19mm at the case and it has a nice slight taper. The strap has like a 3D effect to it. You know, you can run your finger down it and it feels really nice. It has this really beautiful stitch pattern all around, and it's very breathable because there's so many holes on the strap. My wrist is about 6.4 inches, and I'm actually towards the center of the strap. So this strap actually works for a variety of wrist sizes. I actually think it would be pretty funny if you got a tan line from the strap with all the little holes. If anyone has that, send that to me because I would love to see that. And even if I didn't buy this watch, I would consider just buying the strap because it's so good and I love how it wears on the wrist. And finally, while I didn't get to test the full 300-meter water resistance, big surprise, this watch has a screw-down crown, and I have no doubt that this watch can easily withstand any water I throw at it. I mean, it's a 50 Fathoms. All right, now the things that I dislike or things that I wish were different. The first thing is the date. And it's not really the placement of the date window, but the fact that there is a date window at all. Generally, I prefer no date watches because on a dive watch, you have to unscrew the crown, wind the watch, set the date, set the time, screw everything back down. But if you had a no date diver, you can literally skip an entire step and just continue your day happily. However, with the 100-hour power reserve, you probably won't be having to set the watch that often if you're rotating this watch every 3 to 4 days. And while the red gold mother of pearl dial version has no date, I wish that it got passed down to the steel version or the titanium as well. But it wouldn't make sense in an entire family of 50 Fathoms because the 42 and the larger versions all have that 430 date window. Now, one possible reason why Blancpain and other dive watches put a 430 date is so that each hour marker can have lume, which is part of the criteria for a commercially technical dive watch. That's, for example, why Seiko had to retroactively add little lume dots squished to the right of their 3 o'clock date windows to adhere to this ISO rule. Putting a date window at 430 allows the wearer to have a date window and a watch to still have lume. And I think most people generally do prefer to have a date window, despite a lot of people being very vocal about not wanting a date. And talking about the branding all over the watch, while I don't love the giant Blancpain logo on the side of the case, as if I would forget what watch I'm wearing, it actually did not bother me when I was wearing it. So in practice, totally forgot that their branding was there because the branding is on the case side, and because I wear this watch on my left side of the wrist, my shirt is always going to cover it and I can barely see it unless I really put it on this angle where I'm like staring down the barrel. Would I still prefer no case side branding? Yeah, absolutely. I would still prefer to not have it, but this became no longer a deal breaker for me because nobody will notice it, you won't notice it, and you're gonna just continue your day and like nothing ever happened. Another thing is, while the movement runs great and has a long power reserve in a thin case, 100 hours, I do wish the movement had hacking seconds or stop seconds. So what that means is when you pull the crown to the second position, the seconds will continue to run, which is called non-hacking. But there is a workaround. When you're in the time setting mode and you gently, and I really mean gently, kick back the minute hand, it will slow down, reverse, or completely stop the seconds hand, giving you enough time to synchronize your watch like a spy agent. This is the hack for hacking the seconds, so while you don't get the feature, there is a workaround. Just don't do this workaround when the watch is in the time setting mode near the midnight hour because you don't want your date window getting jammed. Another thing is the bracelet is not for me. I told you I love the Tropic rubber strap and I really mean it, but this bracelet is a standard bracelet. It has a butterfly clasp and no micro adjust. When most people think of a diver clasp, they're thinking fold over clasp with micro adjust, maybe a wetsuit extension, and this has none of those features. It feels like the bracelet was added just to have a bracelet option. I'm sure there is someone out there who said, I just want this watch on a bracelet, and this is what they came up with, but it doesn't feel like this is really the main way this watch was intended to be worn. Hence why I said, and I'll repeat again, the black Tropic rubber strap is 100% the way to go. And again, the high polish is just not for me. I do prefer the blue titanium for that brush finish, and I also just like the blue dial more for this watch because you get a little bit more depth on the watch. However, the high polish does give the watch its luxurious feeling since you get a lot of shiny surfaces, but for me, I would personally want something more tool watch vibe. I will say though that while I was wearing this watch for those days, I did get a lot of compliments on this watch, especially from people who weren't watch collectors or enthusiasts. The quality is very easy to see from afar. Another thing, this is just generally with 50 Fathoms, not just specific to the 38mm version, but I'm not crazy about the strap change mechanism. You basically need 2 hex tools to remove the strap, so you can't use a normal spring bar. And while I might not love this function, it's actually way more secure because this strap is not going anywhere without the proper tools. So this actually might be a good thing. And the last thing is something that's generally with 50 Fathoms, not specific to the 38mm, and it has to do with the handset. I'm generally a big fan of rectangular hands or sword hands, like the Hodinkee limited edition or the 50 Fathoms NORAD, or even the bathyscap. But that's a very personal thing for me because I like those kind of hands in general. So when I see these hands, it just like doesn't really do it for me. But that's during the daytime, because when these hands are loomed, man, it looks so good. I totally forget what the hands look like because now it doesn't follow the shape of like the long with the pointy tip. Now it just has like the bright loom and it just looks good now. Finally, I don't have to tell you this, but most people already said it. The price starts at $18,200 on strap and goes up from there. And while the price is definitely up there, it's no denying that the quality of the watch itself is amazing, along with all the heritage of the 50 Fathoms legendary die watch, Tornek Rayville, and all this cool stuff that you can talk about mil spec. I'm just throwing out words now just to remind you what this watch is about. So here's my final thoughts. Because of the price, $18,200 on strap or $19,500 on bracelet for the steel version, this watch actually makes me really like the bathyscap 38mm even more, which is in the $11K range. The bathyscap is slimmer, at 10mm, has the same movement and a compact size. However, I do know a lot of people want the 50 Fathoms for the 50 Fathoms design. And based on the comments and questions people have regarding the pricing, I know a lot of people are going to have a little hesitation here. They're gonna wait to get their feet wet. I think the general consensus is the watch is amazing, people are happy about the size, but the price is high. And I can't really give you a final decision of whether the watch is worth it for you because everyone has different priorities and budgets. I do wanna say that I think pricing with this watch is a larger conversation that's happening in the industry. For example, like the last watch I reviewed on this channel, the Zenith Lapis Lazuli triple calendar. Oh my God, stunning watch, beautiful dial, but high price, over 20K. And I just feel like collectors are rightfully a little bit hesitant for watches like this because of steep pricing. Everything in general just feels more expensive, whether it's from Blancpain or to Seiko or to Omega or to literally any other watch coming out today. And regarding the size, everyone is also asking why didn't Blancpain just make a 40mm and call it a day? And I truthfully wish I had the answer. All I know is through the historical references, everything in 40mm is basically reserved for limited editions. Think the mil spec, the Hodinkee versions, the Ocean Commitments, the NORAD, the Barracuda, and so on. The most desirable case side, the most desirable versions, all in the best size in 40mm. But ultimately, I think that the 38mm size works well, and most people can decide between a 38 or 42mm if they're not going for a limited edition. So if you tried the 42mm and you feel like it fits well, I would say just stick with that option. Plus, you get the new movement with the stop seconds. But anyways, what do you think of the new Blancpain 50 Fathoms 38mm? I'm honestly now a little conflicted because I like the bathyscap 38mm even more now since this watch is basically a smaller 50 Fathom but with the movement from the bathyscap. Subscribe if you love watches, and if you're interested in Blancpain, you can reach out to my store, Carrot & Co. Now if you want to see another watch review, you can check out this video here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.